Well, we know Thanksgiving is almost here, and while it's usually filled with happiness, family, and food, this year's holiday season also means more than 600 Montana families are missing and mourning the loss of a loved one due to COVID-19. As MTN's Victoria Hill reports, grief can be a helpless feeling, but one Lame Deer, Montana man is using the tragedy of his father's death to help others.
My father, his name is Isidore Whitewolf. He was a vet. I was close to him. I didn't think nothing of it when he first told me. He said, "Son, if I get this COVID, I'm not going to make it." And I thought, oh, he's tough. He'd been through a couple of heart stent surgeries and he gets through with diabetes.
But Isidore would be right. A positive test on August 21st.
I remember him telling me that he was scared when he did get it.
He took his last breath 22 days later on September 11th. His family left to mourn.
We all felt the grief and the shock of, we didn't see any of this coming to us.
And they weren't alone.
There was a lot of loss. At the time that I was at the hospital, there was a lot of people from my home and my town that passed away at the same time.
Goldstein and his family live in Lame Deer on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. His father's battle would be one of more than 30 lost on the reservation since the pandemic began.
And I was just feeling a lot of grief. And I didn't have a support group.
He turned to the internet, but a search didn't turn up any groups focused on lives lost to COVID-19.
So from there, I just thought, if it's either a couple of choices. Either I can wait around and see if someone does bring one up or does start something that would help us in our local areas, or I can start with myself.
And that's how the Loss of Loved Ones to COVID-19 support group was born. Hosted every other Tuesday, Goldstein held his first Zoom session 2.5 weeks after his father's passing.
It was just about relating to each other, and not surprisingly, but we were all going through the same things with how to do this.
And to be in a group with people who are going through the same thing or have experienced the same thing is very helpful.
Terry Steinbrink is a hospice chaplain and bereavement specialist at Riverstone Health.
They realize I'm not crazy, there's nothing wrong with me, this is part of the natural grief process. So it's really helpful for them to be able to share with people that understand what they're going through.
While all deaths are tragic, a loved one passing away during the pandemic can add another layer of grief due to restrictions brought on by COVID-19.
A lot of them weren't able to see their loved ones at the end, which has added to the grief. They weren't able to have funerals or had really small funerals. And they just don't have quite as much support because people aren't dropping by to visit with them.
And as deaths across Montana add up, it means one less family member at the table during holiday gatherings, or for some, more.
Thanksgiving and Christmas are two of the harder holidays because they're thought of as family holidays. And so when you've lost, someone in your family, one woman I talked to a few weeks ago lost 4 family members. I mean, that's going to really impact their holidays.
Although they might not be present physically, the grieving process is softened when you allow them to be present spiritually.
It's important to come up with some way to remember their loved one. And we've had people do that in different ways. Some of them have maybe planted something, a plant that will bloom around the holidays. Some people light a candle in memory. If the whole family is comfortable, sometimes they'll share memories of the loved one. But I think it's really important for them to include some sort of ritual or way to remember their loved one through the holidays, because it's really hard to just try to pretend like everything's okay when it's not.
As he makes progress toward closure, Goldstein is willing to make himself vulnerable in hopes of helping others.
I would just suggest people to make sure they reach out and not go through whatever traumas that they're experiencing alone.
And this advice for anyone grieving this holiday season.
Be gentle with yourself. Do not have the same expectations of yourself through the holidays. Maybe simplify things. If you don't feel like going anywhere, that's okay. Just to really take care of yourself through the holidays.
In Billings, Victoria Hill, MTN News.